You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
Hearst Ranch is a proud sponsor of the Heritage Radio Network. Learn more about Hearst Ranch at HearstRanch.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cutting the Curd on the Heritage Radio Network. I'm your host, Karen Warren. And on today's episode, I'll be chatting with my co-hosts of Cutting the Curd, a.k.a. Jessica Kesselman and Joe Salonia, about the Cheese Society conference we all attended last week in Buffalo, New York. Hey, guys, how's it going? Have you recouped from the whirlwind that was ACS?
Hey, I am still tired. I'm still very tired, personally.
I did not get COVID, so I'm happy about that. But yeah, it took me a while to get back into regular eating habits.
There you go.
Yeah.
I can relate to that.
Yes.
There was like some cheese withdrawal. I feel like I'm still having like a bite a day right now because I'm that kind of person. But yeah, salad is good.
Yay, salad.
Vegetable matter. We're eating more vegetables.
And Joe, we were pre-chatting in the show, but you were traveling before and after Buffalo, New York? So you kept going.
It was a plan that sounded good at the time because I had some of my team, well, Roland was visiting in from Switzerland. So I wanted to make it worth his time. And it seemed to make sense to precede the American Cheese Society conference in Buffalo by visiting Pittsburgh and Cleveland before. Why not? I mean, it's like a little triangle.
So close.
They're so close. They're so close. It's just a 6.5 hour drive from where I live. And on July 5th, just drive there. It's so easy.
Oh
on God. July 5th. That's great.
On July 5th, like 6 days after the fancy food show. Just go right there. It's easy.
Right. And the day between July 4th and the weekend.
Yeah. The saving grace, no traffic. I got to say. A blue line. That was I didn't know. I mean, but it seems like nobody's vacationing route is from Jersey City, New Jersey to Pittsburgh. No one's doing that route for vacation.
It was you and only you.
Just me and a bunch of tractor trailers. Really.
I was going to say a lot of trucks, though.
A lot of trucks and cornfields. Yeah.
So I think that's one thing from the cheese industry perspective is we did do a marathon here, a fancy food show, 1 week of trying to do as many follow-ups as possible and resting, kinda, and then getting back to ACS where we saw everyone again, or as many cool cheese people as we could. I mean, it was wonderful, but now I feel like everyone is just starting to feel slightly normal now.
And there were people who were at IDDBA before fancy
That's
food.
a triple header.
Yeah. So
what is that? International Deli? I mean, I'm bad at the acronym, but for the listeners, it's the Deli and Bakery.
Dairy, Bakery, International Deli, Dairy, Bakery.
Yeah.
Pretty close. I think we nailed 2 out of 3 of the words there.
There were some who've done all 3, I guess, right?
It's a trifecta. It's like
I think to
like
myself,
horse racing and getting the Triple Crown. And Jess, bringing it back to ACS, how did you feel like this compared to previous ACS conferences? Doing it in Buffalo and just the overall vibe. Do you think it was a good one? One for the Bucks?
I see each conference as its own entity because I think, geographically it's always unique. I was really, really smitten, let's say, with Buffalo. And to be honest, the further I get from the conference, the more I reflect on it and the more I really loved it. I think, the physical space of the conference center was generally a little
right. I think that was hands down. We all agreed. Yeah.
And I think like walking into the conference center the first time I was like, is this the back door? Like, where is because the truth is we've been in some beautiful conference centers. Pittsburgh was phenomenal. I mean, there was a pinball machine, like a convention going on while we were there, which was great.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Right. I forgot about that. That was amazing.
Was so cool. Yeah.
So I think the physical space really was underwhelming. But the more I get to reflect on the sessions, the locales in Buffalo where events took place, and just like the general ease with which to get around, I am just appreciating the conference more and more.
Yeah, I agree. I think cities like that deserve the business. I wish the convention center was a little bit better, but I think that's what Buffalo might be all about, a little nitty gritty, but still fun. And it was so good to see everyone there. Joe, I know you had a different perspective of ACS because you were working a table within the conference. So like, can you explain what that was like for the listeners? How does that work from your point of view?
Yeah, I think I don't know if I'm alone on this opinion, but anybody trying to ship cheese there, in other cities you might have a friendly cheese shop or a few cheese shops, even depending on the city, where you can maybe find a refrigerator or pre-send some things. But Buffalo was tricky for me anyway. The logistics were trickier. And my impression pulling into town was similar to what you're saying. I wasn't even sure like where to go. Like the front door seemed like the back door. There were hardly any windows in the hall. Just the aesthetic of it was different than the others. But once we got in there, it was fine because then the team helped. So that was tremendous that the ACS team was there to support. So I showed up with cheese and supplies, just like doing a tabletop kind of presentation in my car. And I showed up with cold stuff and it stayed cold. So that was great. So, but the ACS teams, I give all the credit to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a good thing, what they do. I was also going to say, Joe, the one thing I noticed this year based on the layout of the convention center was the vendor area was its own separate room, which I kind of liked, actually. It was like this kind of club filled with vendors in it that you could go talk to people. And it wasn't just like in the middle of where all the session rooms, like usually it's in a hallway or like this. So that kind of, I don't know if that was better for you, but that seemed to be kind of cool, I guess, right?
Well, actually, for me, I prefer it the other way. I do.
Oh, okay. There you go. The real answer.
Yeah, maybe we were spoiled, but Pittsburgh, Des Moines, even Portland, they're great, and I love those venues. I mean, my favorite venue, which I've not displayed at, but I've attended and I've been there for even the World Cheese Championship contest. But that was the Wisconsin Convention Center is just absolutely stunning and beautiful. I don't know how you can top it from an aesthetic and from a central, in the middle of the capital, in the middle of the city, near the square, the convention's there. It's on the water. I mean, it's just like a dream. So as far as aesthetics, I mean, whether it works for everybody all the time every year, that might be another separate conversation, which is why you want to move the convention around. But as far as like if you can duplicate what that venue is, the way it presents itself, and the beautiful aesthetic of it, that would be my first choice. But yeah, that's not how it works, though. I mean, you have to appreciate each location and just look at the glass half full. Like Jessica mentioned, the locales in Buffalo were something to note. I mean, you can go if you didn't visit Niagara Falls somehow. I mean, that's a bummer because that
exactly
totally filled the tank. I mean, just soul quenching to go and see that. That would replenish any hard days of work by just minutes of just witnessing that. That was amazing to go see that.
That is one of my standout moments from ACS, and actually to add a little humor to it, I wanted to mention that a standout moment for me was doing a Nettle Meadow tasting on a tour bus on the way to Niagara Falls during a rainstorm. I thought that nothing could top. Isn't that a funny sentence to say? I told some friends about that.
You're just missing an eclipse or some hail. I mean,
have you ever done a cheese tasting on a bus? Only with ACS. And in a rainstorm on the way to Niagara? Can't top that.
I did it on a boat after ACS. I did cheese tasting after. So the post-conference tour was a highlight for me. And shout out to the folks that were on the planning committee to have these experiences before and after, like taking in the beautiful surroundings. But we were on a Buffalo tour on the water boat, just ACS folks, organized with a cider tasting and some cheeses from the Finger Lakes. And Rachel Freer bless her heart, she organized this, and it was such a great way to say goodbye to Buffalo from the water. Got a little bit of social or colorful history. I have to say that the tour guide on that boat, she was, I don't remember her name, but she was really wonderful. But, but doing the cider tasting and then eating cheeses paired with those ciders, it was really lovely. It was a nice way to end.
The weather that day, though, right, was also like picture perfect, wasn't it? Like 80 and just pretty low humidity and sunny as can be. Right. Yeah. It was just like it was just such a picture perfect day. I was asked if I could join, and my schedule wouldn't allow, but I was really struggling with that.
So, Joe, this brings up one of the points that I feel like we've been like surveying, pre-chatting about. Like, could the conference be Monday through Friday? Because I would have loved to have been there too, but I couldn't do Saturday. I had to get back and give another tour and, do more worky stuff on Saturday after it's just like,
Yeah, the general vibe I get on ACS, which I wish would change, is that there seems to be like this cramming vibe. Like we're trying to cram everything in. There's not enough time. I wish I'd stretch it out more, because there always seems to be a class that you're sacrificing to go see the other class kind of thing. And why should that be? And then, I don't know. Is there even a way to make up those missed classes online somewhere?
I think you can watch them online. I've heard a rumor you can watch them online, but I would love if they put I think this year it seemed like they were trying to bait people to stay for Saturday. And I'm like, I'm saturated by Saturday. Like we've seen 2 full days of education. We've been out a lot, networking, talking to everyone. My feeling is if you're going to have great sessions, put them on Thursday, Friday, when people are really still mindful and wanting to learn. And I don't know, I think there's room to do that strategy, or just have it again earlier in the week. I mean, half these people are retail too. They probably want to be Friday, Saturday in their shops, not at a conference, losing their, time with that. So I don't know. I know it's sensitive, the subject, but I think it's worthy of people listening and surveying and seeing. I mean, I don't know. I think that's just, you have any key points you want to add to that? Or am I on a soapbox here?
Well, I think there's a lot of things to take into consideration. One is, one reason why the conference travels around the country is because travel time is always going to be a factor for someone coming from somewhere, right? For some people, it's a drive. For others, it's a 6-hour flight. Yeah. Some people, it's an international flight. So that there, you have to take that into consideration. For everyone who says, "Oh, the conference is too short," there are people who say it's too long, that they can't give up 4 days with travel, and so it's really tricky for me. Kind of going to what Joe was saying, I wish that certain sessions would run more than once, because I missed a few because I decided to take a volunteer shift, which was longer than a standard session. So I caught the half of one and popped my head into another. And volunteering is something I think everybody should experience doing, because it's a great way to meet people in the ACS world that maybe you don't interact with in your business life. And I just am like, gosh, I really wish I had been able to see more than a couple sessions. And so I know they were well attended. And I think if other people felt that way, maybe it's possible for a couple of sessions that are identified somehow could be run more than once. So
I think even there was a DEI networking thing at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning. And I was like, geez, I would love to have gone to that if it was like at 5:30, like make a second one that's later, because that's tough. If we're all networking after the show. So that's 8 a.m. is a tough call for me. But anyway, listen, now we don't need to do that. No, I'm just kidding. Everyone should do the survey for ACS. I already filled mine out and sent it in. It's very important to give feedback. And to do it sooner rather than later is better, because it's still fresh for most of us, I think. So try to get your surveys in. I want to move on to the most memorable speakers at the conference. For me, I noted the wash rind session. That was led by Josh Windsor of Murray's, Olivia Haver of the Farm at Doe Run, Veronica Petraza, Blakesville Creamery, and Matthew Ranieri, who I don't know completely, but it looks like he's working at Acme Smoked Fish now, but used to work for Old Chatham. So I just have to say, very talented group, all knew their technical stuff very well and really gave great feedback for cheesemakers on how to develop their wash rinds. But what I loved is the humor and the banter that also was given, and the public speaking that they did was just all on point. So props to them for doing an amazing job. And if you didn't get to be there in person, I think, try to find it online because it was very informative and good. Joe, I know, did you get to sneak away to one session, or do I throw this to Jess?
I got to sneak away to a few sessions. My Friday was pretty busy, and Saturday. Friday and Saturday went one into the other. Friday, I attended a DZRA session, and then I attended Ari's Dignity session, which I always love.
How was that?
It's always uplifting. I mean, anything, just getting some energy about Ari's perspective is always, again, I'll use the term soul quenching for me because I think it's appropriate. I think it just seems like an ACS wouldn't be an ACS unless I got to hear and feel and see him speak in a room with like-minded people that are just like, it's always like an adjacent topic, right? We're not talking about wash rinds or how to sell to the top market of you're not these like pinpointed topics, but in the language of many things that are Ari, it's just always fitting, and some hit more than others, but this year's his was Dignity. It was just great. I love it.
Yeah, he's a well-rounded person and an awesome public speaker. I think one thing that we can always hope for at these conferences and sessions is like you get a good public speaker, because sometimes if someone doesn't nail it, it's like, no, I wish I was at another side. No, so I'm glad you got to see Ari. And Jess, who was a standout speaker for you?
Well, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to say there. So there are two sessions that come to mind for me that really stuck out. And aside from Ari's, which I loved, and I want to there's just one quote from his session that I wrote down because I think it's really important. He talks about, about how we show up and honoring humanity in others. And one of the things he said is, in terms of like in a workplace environment, there's a radical difference between choosing not to go to a meeting and being locked out of the meeting. And so, I think that I've experienced that in my professional career, not my current situation, but in the past. And it really is a radical difference. And so anyway, but that said, Saturday. So Saturday, really interesting. I don't know if they did this on purpose, but there were these two sessions I attended back to back. One was about really focusing on retail, what data can tell us about consumers, shaping the future of artisan cheese through today's consumer trends. And there was a woman who was facilitating along with Greg Harden from GFI. Her name was Melanie Zanora Bartelme. She works for Mintel Food and Drink, and they are food analysts, right? They look at data and consumer trends. And so they were talking about like the retail market and about what's important to consumers and looking at the data. And it was really interesting because number one and two on that list was, hold on, I'm getting to my notes. Taste was number one and cost was number two for priorities, right? And here we are, we're all big storytellers. That was not a priority.
No, it was not.
And she actually said only 17% of cheese users in the United States say they're interested in a brand story. And only 14% seek out a brand's sustainability claims. So, boom, I'm in sales and marketing, and my head explodes. Yeah. That was followed by then a session about selling to the top of the market, right? And so now we're talking about luxury. And Michelle DeFeo, who I mentioned before, she's president of Champagne Laurent Perrier in the U.S. And she really drilled down on like what the luxury market wants, what that top, market, they do like the strange little stories because cost isn't an issue.
Sure.
Right. But she also was saying how important price integrity is. And knowing where you draw the line, like what is your price? Because once you go up, you can't go back, or once you start, low, you can never reduce your price to the consumer, right? So once your price goes down, if you have your price, at a certain point, and then you're going to lower your price, you can't go back up. And so she really, painted this whole other picture that I think challenged everyone in that room to really take these two sessions together and look at like their price integrity, having a structure that meets different parts of the chain. And maybe it means having different products for different customer groups. And it blew my mind. I can't wait. If they publish something on the website, from these two sessions, I'm going to be all over it for my job.
I wish I could have attended these. This is part of the challenge. I had a commitment to attend a DZTA presentation, which I'm very happy I did and went well. But the taste cost thing, if you just put something on a counter and let people taste it, they're going to look at the price and taste it and make their own a judgment. So I agree with the number one and number two are the two driving factors, but like that's with zero salesmanship maybe involved. Right. So if you're there telling them, hey, as you put this in your mouth, let it expand, hold it for a second, breathe out your nose. Now what I taste, and you start describing some things and you're hearing the story. I mean, that's the difference between, tasting, a delicious thing that has an experience with an emotional attachment versus, just, putting food in your mouth because you're hungry. Like, okay, I get it. But like, I mean, it has to be a little bit of both. And,
this is the tiers, man. This is the tiers. This is what we're talking about. It different, different people, different demographics. I mean, that's super interesting. Okay, guys, we should take a quick break and then we should talk about the awards and who won the awards. So, okay, everyone, you're listening to Cutting the Curd and we'll be right back.
Hearst Ranch is a proud sponsor of the Heritage Radio Network. The Hearst family has been raising cattle on the rich, sustainable native grasslands of California's Central Coast for over 150 years. Piedra Blanca Rancho in San Simeon is the original Hearst Ranch, founded by George Hearst in 1865. George's son was the famous publisher William Randolph Hearst. In addition to being known for building the iconic Hearst Castle, William was, like his father before him, an avid rancher. In his words, "I would rather spend a month at the ranch than any place in the world." Thanks to one of the largest land conservation easements in California history, a joint effort with the California Rangeland Trust, the American Land Conservancy, and the state of California, the working landscape at Hearst Ranch will be preserved forever. Learn more about Hearst Ranch at HearstRanch.com.
Okay, welcome back to Cutting the Curd. I'm your host, Kara Warren. I'm here with Jessica and Joe of Cutting the Curd, and we are getting down to all good things about ACS and some weird things too, because we have to talk frankly about it. But now we want to move on to the awards and some of the surprises that happened at the awards. I think the biggest surprise this year was the fact that the two top winners were Canadian. That was a bit of a curveball. Jessica, am I right or am I wrong?
Well, so I volunteered for the Canadian cheese tasting session with Erin Harris and Kelsey Parsons. And if you were in that session and you tasted those cheeses, you would not be surprised.
Fair enough.
because those cheeses are phenomenal.
Yeah.
But it was a little bit of like a big buildup and then wanting to celebrate your like colleagues and your friends. And then they were people that I didn't know them and I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to have that cheese. And so it was a little bittersweet. You
got to go to Montreal or Quebec. That's the joke. So I just want to read them off real quick. So in case the listener, you were not able to attend ACS and you haven't gotten to check out the winners list yet. The number one winner was the Raclette du Compton. au poivre, which was made by Fromagerie La Station, which was a farmstead cheese with added flavor, basically raclette with peppercorns. It was very good. Second was Le Cousin by Fromagerie Medard, which was a soft ripened washed rind cheese. And then in third, which I totally forgot this because everyone got psyched about the Canadians taking over. The Flagship Reserve by Beecher's Handmade Cheese, cloth-bound cheddar with natural rind, aged more than 13 months, all milks, came in third place. It was very good. I actually do remember tasting all three of these cheeses. Once I looked them up and looked at the photos of them, I was like, I was present in Minnesota during the judging, and I have to say they were all pretty spectacular. So if you're able to get your hands and try these cheeses, it's a treat. I mean, you're not gonna lose.
I actually heard that from several people who were part of the judging in Minnesota. They said like they didn't know, you guys didn't know what the cheeses were, right?
Exactly.
You didn't know, but people like now after the fact, they're remembering like, oh yeah, I remember. It's their memory of that cheese. They're like, oh yeah.
Yep.
And are these cheeses able to be sold in the U.S.? That was the first thought that crossed my mind.
Great question. I don't know. I want to actually follow up on the two Canadian cheeses because I know so little about these groups. So I started researching them. So it's like part of ACS also helps get my mind working on cutting the curd topics. And I think this was one of those ones that's starting to cook for me.
You guys.
Yeah.
You have to go back and listen to my episode about Canadian cheese.
I know.
Yeah,
you're right. Shame on us.
Erin and Kelsey talked about the market and about some of the barriers for us to get Canadian cheese and for them to get cheeses from the United States. And from other countries. And it was also part of their presentation. So although they didn't talk specifically necessarily about these cheeses that won, it does give a little bit more insight into why, so close but so far with Canadian cheese. Yeah.
That's a good tease, Jessica. You're right. We should all listen to more Cutting the Curd episodes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Fair enough. That's fair homework. Okay.
Or listen to it twice because I did listen to it and I'm forgetting things.
Oh, see, Joe, you're a bad kid. Another thing I wanted to bring up is some other categories that stand out for me that they catch my attention. So like the cloth-bound cheddar is a usually pretty big category, I think. Murray Stocking Hall and Urbanstead cheese, who it's called Street Ched.
Yes, it is.
And they both tied for first, Jess, as you noted, right?
Did they tie for first?
They did. I looked back. So this I did the homework, guys. And Murray Stocking Hall and Urbanstead cheeses Street Ched tied for first place in the cloth-bound cheddar category, which is pretty awesome, I think, actually. Well, yeah.
I mean, I love my Murray's, but once I eat Street Ched, like I can't see any other cheeses. Wow. I love that cheese so much. And again, another plug, go back and listen to the interview with
There you go. Jess, you're ahead of everything. I love it.
For those that are less familiar like myself, is this the Ohio cheesemaker you're talking about?
Yes,
Correct.
Yes. And they also won for their Gouda, which is also delicious.
So we were not that far away from them, I guess. I wonder where in Ohio. I wonder how far from Buffalo. Okay.
Cincinnati.
Not on the 10,000 miles that Joe was going on.
It was not in my route. It wasn't in my route.
God damn it. It wasn't on the map.
I could have waved to them as I drove.
No. You'll have to go back. Another fun category that I like to look at is the soft ripened cow's milk under 8 ounces category. And the top winners there were the Farm at Dough Run's Hummingbird, talented team there, and Arethusa's Carly's Gratitude, which I don't know actually. And I was like, now I want to drive to Connecticut and check that out. Have you guys ever tried it?
Man, I have never heard of that.
This is what
ACS does.
But I'm a little out of the loop.
It's been a while. But you can't go wrong with their cheeses too. They've, what? It was nice to see a mix of new and then also established cheesemakers. Like, I feel like the whole gambit was represented. Like Vermont Creamery boom, they're back. Their cheeses are back. They won so many awards.
They did win a lot of awards.
Yeah, I was really happy to see that, because I think, I have a long history with Vermont Creamery, and their cheese has disappeared from a lot of cheese counters around here. I think with, the different things happening with their company.
Yeah.
The marketing change. The butter is now in the dairy aisle, and everything's great. And now to see them putting the focus back on their cheese, and then to see it recognized with Allison there. I mean, that was really great.
That's great. Oh, I didn't realize. Was Allison Hooper was in attendance at ACS?
Yes,
oh, I missed her. Yeah. Dang. Yeah. Shout out to Allison Hooper.
Oh,
Allison Hooper, the new Hooper cheese.
Yeah. I also wanted to say for the local New York cheese scene, obviously I'm biased for Nettle Meadow right now, but they took some wins as well, and I was very happy with that. Truffle Koenig took first. Koenig and Crane Mountain took second place in their categories. Did you guys notice any other New York cheeses that were awarded within the ACS competition? Or did you notice anything about New York cheeses overall during the conference?
I'm going to admit to being a little outside the loop of that.
That's fair.
Again, I'll blame it on my travel schedule.
No, that's fair. No, I mean, listen, and I guess maybe it's even for the Northeast. We could broaden it, because I don't know a million cheesemakers off the top of my head right now that we could look at. And I know, well, the New York State Cheese Guild did get together. There was a meeting, I think. Was that correct?
That was another big thing for earlier in the week, right? On Tuesday or Wednesday night of that week, there was a meeting.
Yeah, yes. So that's getting momentum, actually. I'm happy. So again, the conference did a lot of good for getting people together, I guess, which is what I always feel like is the main. I guess the education would probably be branded as the main purpose, but really it's networking. So sorry. I shouldn't say it like that, but I did just say it like that.
Being at ACS, I mean, part of the motivation for me to want to attend is the pure joy of being around people without a big giant agenda of work. It's like you're really able to kind of chill and hang and go to some cheese classes and then grab a snack or, talk about cheese and just kind of be like in a casual capacity with so many different people that and that to me that's just pure joy for me. I love that. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think that's why we all love attending.
Yeah, it's a curd nerd fest for sure. Everyone's like really psyched to eat cheese, to study cheese, and meet some cool new cheese people. I mean, one of the things that I'm actually looking forward to now is for the future of the ACS for the conference is I noticed like a few people had a fire lit under their butt to do more for ACS and more on the committees, because they love what they're seeing, but they want to see more. And there's always room for improvement and to keep evolving. So I think I'm excited for more ACS conferences. I know next year's will be in Sacramento. So it's a little bit far for us East Coasters, but you got to be fair. They came out to the East Coast this year.
Yeah,
so.
they sure did. Yep. They showed up.
So, I mean, I'm looking forward to, do you guys have any predictions? Joe, do you have any predictions for next year's conference or further conferences that you'd like to see?
Predictions as far as like who
would you love to see? What can you imagine? I don't know. Yeah, maybe there's a cooking cheese session that you want to speak to, or you have a feeling for something that is like, you see it coming around and you want to see it at ACS next time.
Well, I think wine country is a little far from Sacramento, isn't it? So that's a little tricky to connect.
Maybe. I give it a maybe. I looked at the map as well. Napa Sonoma is a few hours, but that's not terrible in the overall crux of things.
I just want to see. I want to see more of the classes that really bring people together. Like I loved the Cheese Culture Coalition. I love the lunch. Like to me, the highlight was the last very thing, the lunch session.
Can you describe that for us? Because I wasn't in attendance for that.
Yeah, so I'll give you my description. I hope I'm describing it correctly, but it was on Saturday. It was 12:30 on Saturday, so you had like just a small group of who was still there. But I don't know. I had a few lunches and a few breakfasts at the ACS, but this lunch was tasty as hell. Had all beautiful Latin food. I think it was maybe there was some help from Whole Foods that really gave some lift to getting the food produced. But there was a keynote of Latin American cheese, street food bites, and the street food and bites were on the table, and then there was like a good representation of Latin American food with some cheeses from I believe Colombia or Mexico, at least on the
and Brazil.
And Brazil. Okay, thank you. And you had John Braga from talking about the Brazilian cheeses. You had Alejandro Gomez talking about the Colombian mozzarella, right? And maybe a crema was also included. And then Georgina Illescas Jealous, she spoke about Mexican cheeses. And I don't know, it was just delicious, engaging. The three of them had presentations that were just great, and they held my attention. They went one after the other, and their presentations were very easy to digest, and it was a great way to it was a great session. It could have been anywhere in the ACS's curriculum, but it was, I think, seemingly the last thing.
Yeah. It was, if people are wondering why they're seeing so many photos of Seal and Jeannie in a cup of hot chocolate.
Yeah, that was something.
Because Alejandro introduced us to this incredible experience of melting, some mozzarella into a Colombian hot chocolate. So it wasn't like super sweet, and it was just mind blowing. Also, the panela from Navarro cheesemakers, I believe.
Ooh, yes. Okay.
And that was, so it's like a halloumi, like it doesn't melt, right? But it can get crispy, and then you put it in a salsa. And I think people were like, is it soup? Is it, it's everything.
Oh, that's exciting.
So delicious. I wish I had some right now. I mean, it was such a delicious lunch, and even little bites on the table too. Yes,
we had, mind blowing for me too was the pão de queijo, the cheesy bread made with tapioca flour, that you then put the crema that Joe is referring to as a cremosa from Brazil that I had a very long time ago in Brazil, that my friend and I would buy by the jar and just like spoon out. But we were eating like the industrial crap, and John really like talked about like, this woman, this cheesemaker who I believe was at ACS, she whipped up a batch fresh of this cremosa that you just like smeared on it was cheese on cheese, essentially. It was on the pão de queijo. It was an incredible session. Yeah. They were incredible presenters, and we got to eat the cheese, but also eat it in context. And it was just phenomenal.
That is, wow. I'm jealous that I wasn't there for that now. I'm like, Saturday.
But you see, you were on the bus with the Nettle Medal and the night, wherever you were. That was
at the beginning. I did a pre-conference. There's only so many things you can get to. I mean, I think doing this episode now, I really feel like Buffalo was an incredible ACS. I know, like, going into it, we were like, Buffalo, but now I'm like, and then like, even as you're there, sometimes you like think, oh, but what if they did this? What if they did? But now, like, really looking back on it, it was a very thoughtful and well done, well executed, and everyone was just great there. So great job to the Civica management and the ACS committees for doing an outstanding job. I think we're all excited for more ACS conferences, and I'm just glad we could. I mean, I think we covered pretty much everything. I know there's a few little things here and there we could also talk about, but like overall, I thought it was great. I mean, you guys, any last words about ACS that you want to throw out there for the listeners?
I'm gonna go first because I don't want this to be the way we end.
Okay, fair.
I think it's really important to bring this up. You had asked in our pre-episode kind of back and forth, one of the things you said was like, oh, key themes or trends. Mm-hmm. And the word that came to me was fear. And I want to acknowledge that there was a low-key vibe amongst folks that came up in some sessions about succession planning, affordability, availability of milk was a big theme, especially for goat milk, consolidation of markets. That came
that's huge.
up. Consolidation of distributors, consolidation of companies when they own multiple creameries. Like these themes kept coming up, and independent cheese shops and farmstead cheese makers, they share fear of survival in the face of all of this consolidation. And so, this came up in that selling to the top of the market session. And I just want to make sure that it gets acknowledged. And I hope that that is something that we can have more sessions about in Sacramento. And hoodies. We need an ACS hoodie. No more t-shirts. I'm done with t-shirts.
Oh.
I want a hoodie.
Oh, for the cooler.
Yes.
All right. Well, you heard it first on Cutting the Curd. Jessica demands a hoodie. It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I forgot to put it on my feedback form. So somebody, if you didn't
email it to them. Yes, you email it to Rachel Freer, who's like the hidden survey. She's taking surveys, guys. Shout out to Sweet Punk. Joe, what are your feelings and last thoughts on ACS?
Well, I like the. I hope the ACS and any work we do, I hope we try to find inspirations. So yeah, I mean, fear is all around us. But we never want to be making our decisions based in fear. That's always going to lead us down a dark hole. So whether you can admit that conditions aren't in your favor because of consolidations, there's always somewhere, usually a positive spot to stand. And I hope that independent companies who are not of that philosophy will find their position and let the consolidations happen around them. And you are then operating in alignment with your values, and you're not putting your efforts through this filter of fear. You're doing things that are aligned with your values, and then your business will be what it is, and hopefully that's a healthy business that you love operating. So I hope that means something along the lines of inspiration, because to me ACS usually inspires and fills me up, and that's what I hope it will continue to do, no matter where it's located.
See, that's why I didn't want to go before you, because you like nice counterbalance, a little yin and yang here. I love it.
I amen to that. I have to say, working with you guys on Cutting the Curd this season has been awesome, and I feel like we are just doing a super great job. I can't believe how we've gotten a lot of these subjects are now coming out of sessions, and I'm just super impressed and proud of us. So I just want to say to the listeners, we finished this season and we're gearing up for the fall. We're going to take a few weeks off, but we'll be back with more Cutting the Curd soon. And I think we have a lot of great ideas for the fall. So I'm really, really looking forward to the next season. Well, please follow Jess and Joe on Instagram at Jessica Keska and Sting Chef, and follow myself at Kara Warren. Plus, you can follow the show and the network at Cutting the Curd and the Heritage Radio Network. Please listen and subscribe to Cutting the Curd wherever you listen to your podcast, and have a great summer. Thanks, and eat more cheese. Cutting the Curd is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.